Yeah, and Norah O'Donnell joins us now. Thanks so much for being here. As you pointed out in the piece, Seoul's less than 40 miles from the North Korean border. What kind of damage could a long-range missile do?
Well, the defense secretary says it would be catastrophic, any type of conflict on the Korean peninsula. Not only can the artillery, which is already positioned on the DMZ by the north, not only could that hit the south, but they could use a short-range missile to hit Seoul. So that's why there's such an increased security posture there. And I think one of the reasons that Camp Yongsan is moving south to Camp Humphreys. They're going from 600 acres to 3,400 acres. And that's a lot different from when I lived there 30 years ago. We didn't have those same security concerns. The artillery back then by the North Koreans was not sophisticated enough to reach Seoul. It is now, and that's part of the reason they're moving not only these soldiers, but their families further south.
Well, are those families more concerned with the ramped up rhetoric?
I think they are. I mean, they don't say it publicly. They say, we're always ready. One of the things I learned is that every family and every child is equipped with a gas mask because one of the concerns are some of the chemical weapons that the North possesses as well. So they're prepared for it. They know they're living in a very short distance, essentially, from North Korea, and they practice for it.
Sobering. Let's talk about your interview with the president, because you were front page news in many papers here. You're all over the place. I'm curious what the reaction was like in South Korea to his first U.S. broadcast interview.
In fact, it was his first interview ever, one-on-one interview. I mean, he was just elected last month. He's done press conferences, but he hasn't done a sit-down even with a South Korean journalist. Part of the reason I think that I put it in the request, part of the reason I think they spoke with us is because there's going to be a big summit at the White House next week with President Trump. So there's a lot on the agenda. And in fact, President Moon was quite praiseworthy of President Trump, feeling that they could work together on this. In fact, and he called the Obama administration's position towards North Korea a strategic failure. That was a position where they did not have dialogue with the North. President Moon won. The polls in South Korea show they want inter-Korean dialogue in order to help solve this problem. And so that'll be part of the discussion next week between President Trump and Moon. This is critical. I mean, this is why we went there. We wanted to do some real reporting, some original reporting about something that really matters, because the defense secretary has said this publicly in interviews and up on Capitol Hill. North Korea is the greatest threat to U.S. national security. This is one of our largest army bases, more than almost 30,000 U.S. troops there. So this is going to be the story that we're covering for the next year, for the next couple of years, of what happens on the Korean Peninsula.
Norah, when you were there, it was announced Otto Warmbier's death. What was the reaction like among people there and from the president?
Well, I think part of the reason we were on the front page is because of his reaction to Otto Warmbier's death, which was the first couple of questions that we asked President Moon. That included, should the North be held responsible? He said yes. Also, there are 3 other Americans being held still by the North. President Moon, in our interview, said the North should release those 3 Americans, as well as 6 South Koreans that are being held in North Korea. So this is just one of those issues that's on everybody's mind in Korea. And so him talking about that and the way forward about having some future potential meeting with Kim Jong-un. Imagine a face-to-face meeting between President Moon and President Kim Jong-un. I think that's what really drove a lot of these headlines.
Before we let you go, there was also just a personal note. You lived there when you were 10 years old. What was the biggest change that you noticed when you went back? You saw your old school, your house.
I think what should be reassuring is that little has changed. The military, people in the military are still the most honorable people in the world. I even got choked up talking to some of them, realizing these are just such good people who spend their life in service of the nation. And so while there haven't been a lot of upgrades in some ways, my house was still exactly the same 30 years later, kind of a modest duplex. It speaks to the consistency of the U.S. military. It's always there. It's always strong. They're always prepared. And so that was good to see that. And of course, they have made some upgrades, and they're going to move to this gleaming new facility, Camp Humphreys. And the one other thing that I just thought was interesting, the cooperation between Korean forces, they call it the ROK, Republic of Korea forces, and the U.S. forces, unprecedented, unlike anywhere else in the world, working together to be ready to fight tonight against any North Korean aggression.
Real dedication. Norah O'Donnell, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.